name is Miles Gilsonen, Vice President of Data and AI here at Apps Associates. Welcome to the first in a series of videos about Apps Associates' 6 pillars of AI success. These are the 6 disciplines that any organization must master in order to become a mature AI organization. Today, I'm pleased to have with me the Chief Strategy Officer of Apps Associates, John Schmotlak. This morning, we're going to be talking about Pillar 1, Leadership and Value Discipline. John, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. Great to be here.
Excellent. So, John, I know you have been on the front lines of enterprise-wide transformations for, a number of years now, and I know that you have seen what works, what doesn't work. AI is a tremendously transformative technology, to say the least. Let's start off with, what role do you think leadership should play in AI initiatives and transformations?
That's a great point. I think without leadership, AI will not succeed. And I think the important part about leadership within the AI is that you need to establish a culture within your organization where AI is not only understood by the people that work for you, but it's embraced and it's welcomed, right? There needs to be this overall opinion that AI is going to be transformative for your business, right? I think even personally at Apps Associates, our CEO and our leadership challenge our team members every day to develop use cases and to talk about different ways that AI can help, right? That messaging is super important for the overall team to be, supportive of that AI initiative, right? I think it's important that the leadership supports the ideas that are presented from the teams, but they also demand success, because AI by itself and AI initiatives don't transform a business without there being some sort of measure of success. And so establishing that baseline is super important, right? And I also think that keeping the messaging up, talking about AI every day, is an important aspect of what leadership can do. It puts that messaging front and center with the teams that are working on that. And these are all things that I think from the top down in an organization, they can help to establish a great AI strategy internally that helps to support, continuing to adopt AI technologies.
And John, AI can seem overwhelming. Anyone that's been paying attention just the last 2 months, what has come out and the pace at which AI is evolving, it's easy for organizations to be overwhelmed and to be presented with an array of options. What do you think organizations should do? How should they prioritize the AI use cases that should go after first, second, third? How should they do that?
Yeah, we see use case development as being a really important exercise, brainstorming. So once you get to that understanding of what AI can do, your mind starts turning and you start understanding that there's many, many, many use cases that will come out of that discussion. I think it's important to catalog those use cases, but I also think it's important for you not to pick the most complex use case to start, right? I think the important part of an AI initiative internally is to really pick on things that are going to give you a quick win, and so that people can see the value, right? So I would say, if you're in the early stages of understanding how AI is going to work, a big part of that is really going to select something that has maybe cross-functional impact and a positive impact with measurable results, right? But it's also not something that takes multiple months of development and testing to be able to get that to work. So think about in your organization, some of the things that are painful, are very manual, require a lot of exercise of the employees to be able to support driving and completing tasks. How does AI fit into that, right? And, as you're looking in that brainstorming, and picking that quick hit, you're going to showcase that as a case study, and it will start to get the rest of your team really thinking about, well, how can AI help me? And I think that's really the energy that we're looking to try to establish within an organization. I do think that putting a stretch goal of some of the more complex AI use cases is important. So understanding that is something that will have a very large impact in planning around that. But I also think it's important that you have a few use cases under your belt where you are seeing results and can point to those, right? So that all kind of goes back to the roadmap, right? So, I think brainstorming and seeing a variety of different ideas that are coming up from the team, then coming back into a visible roadmap where you can say, during this quarter, we're going to tackle these 4 or 5 use cases and then building upon that. So there's a visualization of what's to come and where that fits into the overall, kind of release cycle. So I think all those are super important, right? So brainstorm to get the ideas, make it visible, but prioritize things that are going to be, kind of very impactful for the organization.
Right. No, those are some good points, John. And another thing about AI, it can seem magical, but it really isn't magic. At the end of the day, it's about data and logic and business processes, these very tangible things. And sometimes we deal with companies who maybe are a bit more optimistic than they should be with respect to AI. What do you think? Should a company have a checklist before they embark on an AI use case? When do they know that they're ready to really tackle something?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think as they are going in and looking at the initiatives that are the ideas that are around there, a tendency to go in there and play around with different ideas. And you develop something and people think it's cool and it's great and it's exciting that something can do that, but it doesn't really have a big impact on the organizations. So it's quickly forgotten. I think about it like when I was a kid and I got a new video game and I played it nonstop for 24 hours, and then I just forgot about it and went back into the pile. Same kind of thing with these is that if it doesn't have a huge impact in the organization, it really is not something that's going to be adopted and, a game changer for your organization, right? And so you don't want this to be the wild, wild west. You don't want to throw a lot of time and energy and resources into developing some AI internally and then have that not be utilized, right? So you really have to think about that framework for how you're going to measure results associated with that, right? That's really important. And most of the AI results are going to come from efficiency gains. So it took me 3 hours to reconcile this task or 10 hours to do data entry every day. And I was paying for 3 resources to be able to do that. And now I only need one, and the other 2 resources can be deployed to other parts of my organization where I have needs to be able to support that. Right. So I think the big thing is really being having that culture, like we talked about earlier, having that culture that your AI is helpful and not scary. AI is a part of your organization now, and you're using that to become more efficient. Much like for years we've used software to be more efficient, right? The days are gone of the adding machines and the manual paper and the big, so AI can really help to be able to support some of those pieces as well. And, that leadership team really spends time analyzing, well, what are we getting from our investment, right? And building in that ROI framework. I think that's an important part of that adoption and the readiness.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a good point. You talked about prioritization and ROI, and you mentioned efficiency. I think what you're saying is, look, ROI doesn't mean that there's some huge dollar hit to your income statement. Especially in the early days, it might be more redeployment of resources than it is something tremendously significant. It doesn't mean you haven't been successful if you haven't dramatically reinvented your organization, particularly in the first several use cases. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, this definitely is, right? And I think a lot of people think AI is going to replace jobs. And in reality, I think AI helps to make job tasks as you understand them today more efficient. And it allows you to take those resources and to allocate them into more, meaningful roles within your organization. Everybody has headcount. Everybody has needs from an organization perspective. I think the people that adopt AI to be able to remove manual tasks are the ones that are going to, be, kind of focused in on different parts of the organization and frankly, to become more strategic and to help to supplement the AI activities, right? So AI is doing the brain power that it took us, 3 days of Excel spreadsheets to analyze and come up with something. So think about what you can do with that 3 days time. You can actually go and action upon the activities that are associated with that. So you still need that human component to verify the work that AI is doing for you, and it will become much more. But you're getting yourself 90% of the way there. It's a huge time saver for you to analyze things and to get things kind of summarized for you so that you see just the things that you need to be focused on, right? And then you can go on and move on to the next task when the next task. So,
Excellent. And you've stressed the importance of having a framework for measurement. Whatever it is,
mhm.
have the framework. Don't let it just be kind of out there. What do you think the cost is of not having that ROI framework as people begin to embark on AI initiatives?
Yeah, I think it just becomes it dilutes the value of the AI initiative because you can't point to what it's doing to save us time, right? So the messaging to the team is very much around, I can't see the value of this because it's not generating any benefit. It's cool, but it's not doing anything for my organization, right? And I think people will lose faith in the fact that an initiative like that is allowed to continue. If it's not adopted, it just sits on the shelf and there's no benefits from doing that. We did all that work and we haven't seen any benefits coming out of that.
And John, you and I have talked about AI as a transformation. It's not a project. It may not even be an initiative. It's an enterprise-wide transformation that's probably going to touch almost every area of the company. And different organizational constructs have come up to be able to really execute that transformation. One of them is an AI Center of Excellence. It's a phrase that people are setting up, and we've done some work on. What do you think that is, and why is it important for companies that are trying to scale AI?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a natural extension of the leadership team, putting priority associated with an initiative like that. But I also think that you need to make sure that there's governance as well as consistency of process, right? So as people start to get excited about AI initiatives, you'll see people jumping in there and spending a ton of time building things. You want that to be reviewed for the validity or the ROI associated with that, and help to put it into prioritization to really help to make sure that you're focusing on the things that are most impactful to your organization, right away. So if you don't have that center of excellence, you don't really have any governance. You're going to see people developing all kinds of different AI, kind of tools and capabilities and use cases for the AI tools that are out there. It doesn't really, it's going to be that wild, wild west concept. It doesn't really kind of fit into the overall process. There's also importance of designing things and securing things in the right way. So you might find that some of the information you're trying to feed into an AI tool needs to be privatized, and somebody doesn't have that same knowledge about what AI does and how AI works, might be putting a lot of sensitive data out there in the public internet, right? So you have to be conscious about the fact that there are, kind of controls associated with this that are important, that are established by the organization, right? I think underneath it all, a center of excellence really identifies to the organization that the AI initiative is real, right? It's something that we're going after. It enforces the messaging that AI is involved in everything that you do in the organization, almost like an internal support organization to be able to help people who may be struggling with getting out of this is how I've done things all the time and into envisioning what that future is. So they're kind of teachers. They're educating the teams. They're staying on top of the latest and greatest AI technologies, which all of us know every day there's something new and some new capabilities that's being introduced. You really need somebody internally to be able to help drive that, and summarize that from, what's happening, and then get that out to the team as a whole, right? And then I also think it's important that that is communicated to the team, right? So everybody should have a good idea about what's happening from an AI perspective in their organization, in the marketplace, what other people are doing, what competitors are doing. All of that type of stuff really, I think drives you to establishing something internally that, will help you to continue that messaging and keep you on track and consistent in the way that you deliver things.
Yeah, those are great points. Governance, transparency, repeatable process. It's kind of a catch-22. AI puts tremendous power in people's hands, and you kind of want them to play around. You want them to get familiar with it, but at the same time, they could just be off doing all sorts of things. And you do need some level of governance and transparency, as you said. Very well said. Well, thank you for your insights today, John. We're a pleasure having you. And
I appreciate it, Miles. Thank you.
thank you.